Good evening. We are live with college football with yours truly, Heather, and I have one of my repeat. I might as well, Mike, at this point, I might as well just call it our pod because you've been on it so much. So this college football season, especially with the playoffs and Notre Dame being in, and then Indiana being in, so you've been subjected to my Ohio State torture for a lot. So thank you for joining me yet again as we review the national championship game. Who would have thought Ohio State and Notre Dame? I think we did, right?
We did. We totally did.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
So thank you for joining me. And I can see that, you've had a busy travel day. So thank you everyone for being patient with us, for getting started a little bit late. I think good things are worth waiting for, right?
Absolutely.
So we'll get into the intros here. You guys know you can follow us on bougiesports.net. Check us out on Bougie Sports on YouTube. If you're not already following me, you can follow me on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Love Buckeyes. And Mike, tell everybody where they can find you. I love to promote you because I love your work. I love your show. I think you and your network are doing amazing things over there. So guys, give Mike and his networks a follow.
Yeah, and thank you so much. That much appreciated. We are doing a lot of cool stuff over at IE Sports Radio. So if you get a chance, give us a follow. You can follow my old personal account here at the Chill Mike, and then follow the show account at IndieSports_IESR. The show is Indie Sports Nation, and we are back to Fridays now for the time being at 5 p.m. Eastern. So we'll be talking more about some football games being played Monday. We'll address that. And we're actually going to talk some Cavs this week too, because
you had a split. You had a split.
Yeah.
So, and that first game was not. I didn't think that you guys would win the first game. I know we're off subject here, but I didn't think you guys would win the first game. But I did think that you would win at home. I didn't think that we would split it that way.
Yeah, it was a weird way to split it, but and as a Pacers fan, I'm totally cool with the split. I mean, Cleveland's been playing really good hoops this year, so to get a split there, I thought was a good thing. It just how it went down was a little odd. So I agree with you there.
So I'll have to watch and I'll have to comment something. Don't say anything. I mean, you can't really say anything bad about either team, to be completely honest with you right now. That's a whole other show. So check them out. It's not just indie sports. It's indie centered, but it's not just indie sports. So I cannot overstate what an amazing job you guys are doing over there. Not just you, but your counterparts. It's a nice network. So give it a follow. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get into all the things college football. There's not a whole lot to discuss game-wise, right? Because how much can you break down this game? How much can we talk about this game? So I wanted to do a little bit of something review centric, and then some of the current landscape, topics of college football. So let's get started with the playoff. Did they get it right? Did the committee get it right? And I know that this is a question that we've asked a lot. It seems to be like one of those topics where everybody thinks it's political. You get some really heated discussions about this. So what do you think? Do you think that this is that the committee got it right?
I think they got it. I think you and I talked about this. I think they got it right with the 12 teams they picked, to be honest.
So do I. Yeah.
Listen, if you want to have an argument about they should go with 8 to start over 12, fine. If you want to have that argument, I don't think it holds a ton of water, but whatever, it's fine. It's just that everybody got mad, because it's all about them, right?
Yeah.
It's like, that game didn't entertain me enough. Why did they do it this way?
Yep. Because you had a couple of blowouts, right? Like the first round, there were some blowouts, and we'll talk about the semi, going into the semifinals, even the quarterfinals, there were some blowouts. So, and Roger, I know, Roll Tide. I'm sorry. You know how we both feel about the Roll Tide thing. So, well,
I was thinking about this earlier today too, Heather. Is we just finished, wild card weekend in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
Boy, those games.
That was a real barn burner too, right?
Yeah, we had one good game there.
One, Washington, Tampa Bay.
Yeah, is everybody yelling around saying change the format?
Yep.
No, of course they're not. So this is the first year we did, 12 teams were done. I think for the first time that it was done, I'm good with it. I think the teams were correct. I'm fine with it. Yeah, you had some blowouts. That's going to happen sometimes.
Well, but you brought up a really good point. You had blowouts in the NFL playoffs. Like you had the best teams in the divisions. You had, the seedings were correct. Everything was the way it should be in the NFL, and they were really bad games. It was, it's just sometimes that happens. And sometimes you don't get those better games until you get those higher seedings and you get the better teams. It's just like everything. There's such a separation between the top teams and then everybody else. And you see that sometimes, it happens. So just for a recap for everyone, in the first round, Clemson played Texas. Clemson lost 24-38. That game wasn't as close as the score indicated. I think Clemson kind of came back in garbage time a little bit. They scored some. Tennessee got routed by Ohio State 42-17. SMU got routed by Penn State 38-10. And IU, Indiana in the Notre Dame game. Now that was probably the best game of the first round, I think. Indiana made some noise late, but it did look like Notre Dame was kind of just like, whatever, you guys can do whatever you want. We're trying to get out of here without injuries. So
that game was 27-3.
It was.
And Notre Dame pulled starters.
Yeah.
And IU left starters in, and they got a couple touchdowns late to make it.
Well, and they had that. Didn't they have an onside kick or something that they had recovered?
Yeah, that was near the end of the game. They recovered it and got another touchdown. So, it was like, but whatever. It wasn't 27-17. It was not that close.
Right. And that's those scores indicate, especially, Clemson and Texas and IU, Notre Dame, the scores were not that close. So the first round kind of played out the way it was supposed to, which actually – it did surprise me because this season was wild with the upsets this year. Every week, I was on here. I'm like, I don't see any upsets. I don't see, maybe there'll be one or two upsets. And I think one week it was like 8 of the top 10 teams got beat. So each week it seemed like there were upset after upset after upset, but it sort of leveled set in the playoffs the way it was supposed to.
I agree. And I think too, there's a few exceptions to this with the 12 teams, but I think just theoretically, you ran that back, say, hey, let's play those games again. Mm-hmm. I think you're going to get some different results.
I agree. I completely agree. It's that anybody can win in one game.
Correct.
So the first round kind of played out exactly the way it was supposed to. Now, going into the quarterfinals, that's where there was some shock. If you had asked me what the most competitive game was going to be, I would have said that it would probably have been Ohio State, Oregon, or Notre Dame and Georgia. I did think, obviously, we both had Notre Dame winning. I did not have such a low-scoring game, even with Georgia having a backup quarterback. I didn't have a low-scoring game like that. But the OSU-Oregon game, that was, I think, wildly surprising. And I say that, obviously, as an Ohio State girl. I did not have that on my bingo card. And I didn't have Arizona State taking Texas to 2 overtimes to have to win that game. So it was surprising to me that the most competitive game was Arizona State versus Texas in that second round.
I can't remember if that was on your show or if I was mentioning it on mine, but I remember looking at that spread for the Arizona State Texas game going, what do they know? Because just the way Arizona State had been playing, and Texas is just Texas. They show flashes during the game of they're a really good team, and then they show flashes of absolute stupidity, in my opinion.
Right.
And then that's kind of what happened, right? It kind of played out that way, and there's a lot of people were upset over that game, thinking Arizona State probably should have won that. Yep.
Well, the targeting call, the lack of targeting call. Yeah.
Right. So, and they've got a fair point, I think, because by the rule, it probably should have been.
I agree. And that's one of the things we'll talk about.
Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, I think for me, Notre Dame, Georgia didn't surprise me as from a lower scoring perspective, just because I've seen Notre Dame's defense all year. And I've seen Georgia's inconsistencies all year, even though they've got a backup in there. So that didn't completely shock me. Now, how it played out, and how Notre Dame got those points so quick, that surprised me. That was, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that Georgia would put up more than 10. I thought that Georgia would find the end zone a little bit more than one time in that game. But it was on my show that you were talking about that with the Texas Arizona State game, because you said Arizona State has been playing so good and Texas plays so inconsistently. So what are they seeing that we're not? And clearly the answer was nothing, really, because Arizona State, okay, in all fairness, Arizona State laid a big egg in the first half. So I do think that they hurt themselves in that regard, because if they had played the way they had played in the second half, it would have been an Ohio State, Arizona State semi. You can't convince me otherwise, because they just outmatched Texas. So, what is it? Was it Scat? I don't want to say his name wrong.
We know who you're talking about.
Yeah. He was unstoppable. So Arizona State kind of beat themselves, I think, more than Texas won. Now, seeing how Texas defense stepped up against Ohio State, I'm not taking anything away from Texas. They are a very good team. Mm-hmm. They deserve to be there. But I did not have that prediction that Texas, Arizona State would be the most competitive, most fun game to watch. I just remember them going into the overtime, and I'm like, can't Texas put a game away in regulation? Because then they go into overtime in the SEC championship against Georgia. So I'm like, I can't handle this if we go 8 overtimes. We need to wrap this up here. So that moves in. Well, I don't even want to talk about the Boise Penn State game, because Penn State, and that's another thing that we've talked about. Penn State had the easiest road to get to the semifinals. And I do think that hurt them in the end, because they didn't have that challenge.
Right.
Yeah. So someone it's Scataboo. So I was saying it right. I was saying Scataboo right. It's just fun to say. Whoever announces him when he gets drafted, that would be a fun job.
That would be.
So do you think, though, that Penn State was hurt with playing SMU, with playing Boise, and not playing that caliber of some of the other playoff teams?
I don't know. I mean, it's a solid argument. You can make that argument, no doubt. They saw Ohio State earlier in the year. Not that Penn State's schedule was, and they saw Oregon, of course. So it's not like they didn't play any competition all year. I thought that, honestly, I think you and I discussed this. Penn State is a good team. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're a great team.
Right.
And I felt that they were getting a lot of love, and I thought they were overranked a good chunk of the year personally. And I like Penn State. I have no qualms there. I just felt that for whatever reason everybody loved them, and I was just like, okay, they're really good, but they're not upper echelon in my opinion.
I remember in one of my shows I talked about how Penn State was overranked, and I ended up getting a death threat actually from someone for it, because they were so upset because Penn State was, they were going to be the national champions this year, and they were so good defensively. And for me, they were good, but they weren't great. And again, it was like what I was talking about, how there was that separation from the great teams, and then you have the good teams, and then you have just the teams. And I think Penn State is stuck in this, especially with James Franklin. They're stuck in this okay with mediocrity. They're okay with just making it to the playoffs. That's what they're saying to me with keeping James Franklin. Someone asked, I did a show on Monday, I think it was. I did shows every day this week. So I think it was Monday's show that I did. Someone said, do you think that James Franklin is going to get fired? And I said, no, absolutely not. Because what else does he have to do to get fired? In theory, he's done everything that he should have to lose his job. He's like 1 in whatever, like 18 against top 10 teams. They've only made the playoffs, I think, one time. They lose every game that matters, and he's still here. So I don't know what else the guy has to do to get fired.
Well, here's my take a little bit on that. I wouldn't go as far as saying they're mediocre. I think they're like a step above mediocre, and I'm kind of splitting hairs here.
Right. No. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a lot of programs out there that would love to have the success that Penn State has year in and year out. Well, they're getting 9-10 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, are they winning that big game? Here's the thing on that: the playoff games are big games.
They are.
He won 2 of them. Even okay, they had an easier matchups on both of those. Cool, that is what it is. But those are big games because those are winner go home games, and he did win those. So I think personally, it's just if you're going to get rid of him, who are you going to bring in?
Well, and that's the argument with everything. But
true, when you're that good, and when you're winning double-digit games every year, where again a lot of programs would love to have that. He just has a problem beating Ohio State and winning that big conference matchup in Oregon and ones like that, and that's
right. He can't beat the Goliaths.
Right.
And maybe he'll get over that. Maybe he'll get over that hump, but he's had a long time to get over that hump. So
that's true. That's very true.
And that is the argument, though. Who are you going to get? That's always my argument when anybody says, fire Ryan Day. Okay, who are you going to get? Who are you going to bring in that is going to keep the continuity? Because I feel like DeBoer from Alabama is a really good example. He's a very good coach. He was a very good coach, but Alabama kind of crumbled because they didn't keep that continuity. They lost a lot of their players. Now, do I think they're going to be fine? Yes, it's Alabama. Mm-hmm. He's still a really good coach. He's still a really good recruiter. But you have that drop off. And for teams like Alabama's and Ohio State's and Oregon's and, those big Georgia's and Notre Dame's, you don't want to see that big drop off. It's a win now mentality. It is not a win next year. It is not a let's build for the future. It is a win now mentality. So, yeah, who are you going to get? But don't you think, though, that a couple of years ago, like when James Franklin was losing these games and it wasn't a 12-team playoff, it was 14, I think that there was who are you going to get? There was a little bit of a better pool, several years ago when they probably should have let him go.
Yeah, that's a fair argument there. I don't disagree with that at all. But they didn't.
Yeah, right. Hindsight's 2020, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was having a discussion with a colleague of mine the other day about about my Colts, for example. It's like, oh well, they could have made this move here a couple of years ago and probably brought this quarterback in, and it would not be in the situation they are now. But you know what? They didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And
coulda, woulda, shoulda, right? Like
right.
Yeah, it's easy to look back and say this is what should have happened. I think I'd like to say that Colts and the Browns are doing the right thing, but it's really hard to say that. I think our college teams are trying to do the right thing. I don't think our NFL teams are trying to do the right thing right now.
Yeah, that's
another show.
Yeah. Yes.
Misery loves company.
Exactly right.
So moving on to the semifinals. I think the semifinals were exciting, right? They were really good games. I think that both games were okay. For me, Penn State, Notre Dame, it was kind of a snoozer. Right? For anybody that's not an Ohio State, Texas fan, that game was kind of a snoozer. If you like offense, I think that, looking back now, they were both really good defensive games. I don't want to say that they were poor offensive games because I do think that they were.
They were not.
You have the 4 teams that were in the semifinals were in the top 8 ranked in defense. So you weren't going to have a 42-21 blowout. You weren't going to have that 39-31, double overtime game because both teams had really good offense. I feel really bad for calling the Penn State Notre Dame game boring. I feel really bad about that. I was just being, bitter. I don't know what my problem was that day, but I apologize to the Notre Dame Penn State fans because that game ended up being very, very good. That fourth quarter
was insane.
What happened? I mean, it was all of a sudden it's like, okay, now we're just going to trade touchdowns.
Well, it's the old saying, right? You got to play all 4 quarters.
You do.
And both teams did. And, it was late, better late than ever, I guess, for if you're an offensive person, but they both found a few, they had a few tricks, for lack of a better term, and
They did.
When
What's
they're
that
moving the
saying?
ball and
Well, what's the saying? The blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then, and I think that that's kind of what happened. That squirrel was like, okay, I got my nut. Now I'm going to run with it, because it was that Notre Dame looked dominant to me. To me, they did. I didn't think Penn State was going to be able to do anything against that Notre Dame defense, and then all of a sudden, Penn Herb. This has to be Herb. Who is Herb? I've got it.
oh,
yeah. But yeah, the fourth quarter defenses, they went to the bathroom. They're like, you know what? We're done. We're going to go to the bathroom and we're not going to come back.
well, except for the last drive where Notre Dame made that interception.
Well, okay.
Led to the game winner.
Okay, but I was going to ask you about that. Was that so what I was talking about, how I was saying that it was not bad offense, it was good defense, but in that particular moment, was that a combination of good defense, bad offense? Was it all on Aller? What play that play back to me? What did you think when you were watching?
That was a bad throw by Aller, but a good catch by I can't remember who made the interception off the top of my head.
Yeah, it was. It
was my Notre Dame corner, and yeah, it was. I mean, he laid out, caught it. It was a good catch, but it was a bad throw.
It was a really bad throw, right? Like, okay, you want to throw the ball away. You're getting he actually wasn't getting like too much pressure, but nobody was open. And throw the ball away, sir, to the sideline. I'm not a quarterback. And again, it's Rich while I'm on my couch, mad tweeting about it, sitting in my pajamas, talking about elite athletes and how terrible they are. I'm like, throw the away to the sideline. You don't throw the ball away in the middle of the field.
Yeah, he had a receiver there, but he would have a perfect pass there.
And did he have a receiver there though?
He did.
I feel like it was there,
but kind of. That's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Like, you'd had to make, an elite
underthrew.
He way underthrew it, and that's not his game. I mean, that's gonna need to be like a old school Peyton Manning, Tom Brady type throw to complete that, and it obviously wasn't there. And he threw it, and I'm sure right when he threw it, he wished he had it back.
Oh, that's one of those immediate God.
And then, but hey, it's like we can look at this in every game. Who's going to make the big mistake? Who's going to have that key turnover? And they both found ways to run the ball.
Yes, they did.
Singleton and Love both had big boy runs. So yeah, and then again, Riley Leonard made mistakes too. Drew made the worst one at the worst time.
Well, and timing is everything, right? I think that just goes for life. Timing is everything. Mm-hmm. And it just was bad. So that'll be one that'll haunt him, I think, for the rest of his life, for the rest of his career. And that'll be one that because college football fans are insane. So I don't think that he's ever going to get over that one.
Well, he's coming back next year. So
he is.
Another chance, I guess.
Well, they've got their core. Their running backs are coming back too. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. But they're losing a couple of people though too. A couple of people are declaring.
Warren's declaring.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
That was an interesting stat that we talked about last night on the Herb and Raj podcast. No wide receivers had any catches in that Penn State game. So again, was that Notre Dame defense? It's one of the things that I had brought up is that, okay, looked like Penn State's game plan was a little bit scared because they didn't want to challenge those corners. Notre Dame has very strong safeties. They have very strong corners. So their secondary is tight, but challenge them. And if something happens, then you change your game plan, but they didn't even really get challenged that much. I just felt like Penn State kind of played a little bit scared and, throw the ball deep. Let them get handsy with each other. Maybe you're going to get a call against one of your corners, and you're going to get that pass interference call.
I don't think Penn State liked the matchup. That's just what
I agree. I agree, but still, like, there's a lot of things that you don't like, but you still have to probably game plan different.
So here's a nice stat. So from receiving yards from Penn State, Warren 6 receptions, 75 yards. I mean. He was kept in check.
Right.
And so,
Ethan,
I mean,
Penn State liked Penn State plays. Yeah, that was
there was just we all felt pretty strongly. You were on my show last week. I mean, we all felt pretty strongly Notre Dame was going to win that game.
Absolutely.
And that fourth quarter didn't go quite as I thought it would go. But hey, you know what? I think more of this is just kudos to Notre Dame's defense and Penn State just not have enough playmaker.
I think James Franklin did. Yeah, I mean.
See, okay, you guys should be loving the fact that he's still the coach there, by the way.
Oh, I know. I'm not complaining about it. I'm definitely not complaining about it at all. But it's just like Michigan fans loving the fact that Ryan Day is still the coach at Ohio State. I get shit on about that from Roger all the time from the dog chug. So God,
you should get a petition going to have Penn State sign Franklin's like a 10-year extension.
I'd probably get some signatures from that. I mean,
I'm sure you get the entire state of Ohio on board with you there.
Yeah. And Ethan, Lou Holtz is busy writing checks that Notre Dame's ass can't cash. Yeah. I'm going to get in trouble. I've sworn twice now.
We'll find out come Monday, won't
we? Yeah. Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves. So we'll talk about the Texas Ohio State. So Notre Dame won. We called it, we're geniuses. Obviously, we do podcasts, so we know what we're talking about. So we called the Notre Dame win. We called the under, but, I'll blame the fireball. Sometimes
I was closer than you were.
You were closer than I was. Thank you for pointing that out.
Not much.
Much closer.
I said somebody get the 20s. And
guys, he's a Purdue fan. He's got to get his wins in where he can.
By the way, I just got a win just now, speaking of Purdue.
Did you?
Came across. I know we're off topic. Wembanyama, the stud of the Spurs, just got posterized by Zach Edey. Just came.
Oh, did he? Victor Wemby, huh?
Got posterized by Zach Edey. So there's my Purdue.
Okay,
moment.
That's a win. We'll take that as a win because Wemby, he's a big boy. He's very good.
So Zach.
But Wemby
is just different. He's a different.
He is
a generational guy.
He is a generational guy. He's like the size of a true center with the skills of like a forward or a point guard. It's sick. Yeah. So see, you got to get your wins where you can here. And that Ethan said that Zach Edey was on growth hormones. We're not going to get into that. HGH. Okay, that's a whole other
you should meet his mom. It kind of would make you question that.
Really? She's small?
Yeah, she's all like 5'5".
5'5".
Well, when you're 7, we have a 7'4" kid.
You're like, wait a minute, whose kid is this? So we digress. This is what you get when you join a live show with us.
Yep.
Texas, Ohio State. I think I died. I think I died twice. I know I died once. I think I died twice that game. I was not okay. I wasn't okay. But like the second half, honest to God, like when the second half hit, I actually was okay. I got a little bit calmer. I'm like, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. It's just a game. It's going to be fine. And I was calm. I was very calm. It's 21-14 and Texas is driving. And I'm like, if they score, we still have time.
Absolutely.
And it's third. And you and I have talked about this. It was 3rd and goal. And they pitch it back 5 yards where, guys, not me being a homer, I promise, Ohio State's red zone goal line, their goal line defense has been stout this year because our front 5 is so tough. We have really good linebackers. And, when you're first and goal, you're not going to pass the ball. So our goal line defense is really good. So what does Texas do? They pitch it back 5 yards and they get dropped for 7. So, Mike, what was your thought on that play? As someone who, and it's okay, like Ohio State, you didn't really care for Texas. You had no, whatever. The game was whatever. So as someone who's just a fan of football.
I might have fired Sark on the spot. Okay, so here's my thing about that. I mean, that was just idiotic opponents. Nice. So let me back up a second. We had talked about this game, previewing it, leading up to it.
Yeah.
I said Texas. I thought Ohio State would win by 3 touchdowns. And yeah, and the way that game started, I thought they were going to. It felt like even though it was only 7-0 or it was 7-0, and I'm like, man, it just feels like we're on the cusp of a blowout, and Ohio State couldn't, just mistakes, drop passes, just could not capitalize on that. Let Texas hang around. But one other thing I told you too is I thought if Texas could run the ball, not crazy, I'm not saying 7 yards, if they could get some forward momentum in the run game, they did a little bit. It wasn't great, but it was enough that you would see Arch Manning make an appearance.
Right.
So fast forward back to that goal line situation. Why in the hell is he not in the game?
Well, they put him in, and
you're running at that situation. You cannot.
Well, and
yards back against that Ohio State red zone defense. It's stupid. It's absolute stupidity.
Right. And Herb went back to the second goal line. He hollered that was a terrible play call. It was. First and goal was a fine play call. Right. You try to run the ball up their middle. I mean, because they were on like the 1 yard line or something like that. They were on like the 1 or 2 yard line. And okay, so you do that. You run the ball, you try to, tush push, and you try to get them in. Didn't work. Second down, it was kind of insanity because what are you guys doing? You're doing things that aren't going to work. And then when he got dropped, I thought, oh my God, we're going to stop them because now it's 4th and goal. And they are on like the 8 yard line, 9 yard line. And I'm like, we really could stop them here. And oh yeah, that's right, Ethan. There was a pass interference call. There was pass interference call.
They were on the 1 yard line, first and goal.
Yeah. So
and
yes,
why they didn't bring Arch back out in that situation because he can run the ball. I mean, all he's got to do is find a little sliver. No hate on your linebackers. This is no disrespect. I'm just saying if they can't do that 4 times.
Well, from the 1 yard line, if you can't do that, then you don't deserve get out. Right, get out.
You don't deserve to win. I mean, again, I'm not even dissing Ohio State there, but
no. It's just the way it is.
1 yard.
Any team.
So it was just awful play calling in my eyes in that situation, and I think he was talking to you and a few others. I'm like, well, Sarkisian gave you a gift.
Oh yeah, you did. But he did, and even he did fumble in the first half. He's very inexperienced, but still, you're on the 1 yard line. Like
didn't Calza fumble though?
Well, but Ewers wasn't the guy. Ewers was not the guy for that play. He just wasn't. And then they make the dumb 3rd down call. So we're 4th and goal. I'm still calm. I'm still fine. And I'm like, okay, we're going to stop them. Like maybe we stop them.
I knew you were. I knew. I didn't know what was going to happen. That I didn't call that. But I was manifesting it earlier. I think I was trying to manifest it in the 3rd quarter. It just happened a little bit late. I had posted. I said manifesting a scoop score. Didn't think it would actually happen, and so. Ewers drops back, and I'm like, oh my God, there's pressure. Comes Sawyer, and all of a sudden he hits him, and you just see the big boy running, and I'm like, I'm running. I jump out of the chair, and I'm sick. I don't know if you guys can still hear it. I still sound a little ugh, but I was sick. I was sick Friday, and all of a sudden, like I got this burst of energy, and I felt so good. So I'm running. My poor dog. She's super upset. She doesn't understand what's going on. I'm screaming, I'm yelling. And then I stop and I'm like, okay, are they gonna call this back? Are they gonna say that Ewers was down? Because that's just my instinct. I'm like, something is gonna happen. Right, sure,
They're gonna call this back. And they didn't. Nope. So that was I mean, the nail in the coffin.
That was it. I mean, what I was as a fan of college football, I was like, all right, give me 21-21 here. Ohio State's still going to have plenty of time with the ball. Let's see what happens. Let's have this thing come down to the final couple minutes, and Texas is going to Texas.
Texas is going to Texas. Ewers is going to Ewer. And Sawyer he did get to Ewers on 3rd down, and he tipped the pass, but you knew that Sawyer he wanted that. Like he was zeroing in on that. But for him to actually, that poor guy, 83 yards. I mean, and he said, I couldn't breathe after. He said, I felt like I was going to die. And he said, I kept looking back to make sure that my blockers were there. He said, because at the 30-yard line, he said, I started to run out of gas. I'm like, I wouldn't have made it 10 yards, but you go. You do you, boy. So that was, I mean, and again, and it was a defensive game because it was bad. It was bad offense for Ohio State.
They're sloppy.
Yeah. Penalties killed us. And we had talked about it on the preview. If Ohio State lost, it was because we were going to beat ourselves, and we were.
Mm-hmm.
But fun statistic, and I think I had told you about this, there are 134 teams in the FBS. Ohio State is ranked 134th with opposing penalties. So opposing team penalties, Ohio State is 134th out of their dead last.
Yeah,
so refs just don't call. That's one thing, you know, where when we cry about that, we actually have the statistics to back it up. So they just don't call penalties. They don't call holding against us. So anyway, we can move on to there's just a couple of things that I wanted to talk about before we preview. So bowl game season's over. National championship game is on Monday. After all of it's said and done, do the bowl games matter anymore?
I think a lot of people are going to say no. I'm going to maybe go in the minority here and still say they do to a degree. It may not be as sexy now as they once were back in the day, but it's still an extra game for these schools to get on TV to help with recruiting, even though recruiting is different now.
It is.
NIL. Like even my little alma mater, Ball State, racked up a ton coming in the transfer portal. They put that announcement out today.
Did they?
Yeah. I mean, and there was a couple names that stood out. I'm like, okay, all right. So I think in a way they still do. They're just not. This is not what it was, right?
They matter to casual fans who don't have anything to watch, and they matter to the fans of the teams that are playing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if Ohio State was playing in like the Kraft.com Bowl, I would watch it and I would root for them. So, yeah, I think that's a good point. Most people say no, they don't matter anymore, but I think that they still matter. It's just on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
Still bringing in money, or they wouldn't do it.
Oh yeah, I mean everybody talks about the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Oh well, okay. The Pop-Tarts Bowl. Let's not throw any shade on the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
I'm not.
Did you see that trophy? It was a freaking toaster.
It was awesome. I loved it.
I did too. I want to go to the Pop-Tart Bowl. Like, I don't even care who's playing. Like, let's go to the Pop-Tart Bowl next year. That just looks fun. And then the chocolate Pop-Tart, he was a thirst trap. I'm not even kidding. Like, okay, you do you, chocolate Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
Because who doesn't love a chocolate Pop-Tart? Don't give me your strawberry or your blueberry or your berry. I don't want fruit in my Pop-Tart. I want chocolate in my Pop-Tart.
Okay. Hey, you do you, Heather.
Always.
I was always like the brown sugar cinnamon guy.
Okay, but that's fine. There's no fruit in that. That's totally fine. I can't do it.
Why are you hating on fruit though?
In a Pop-Tart? No, it just doesn't belong.
Healthy Pop-Tart to some people. I don't know.
Healthy Pop-Tart, right. So does it in the playoffs, does it matter having a title bowl game? So did it matter that Ohio State was playing in the Cotton Bowl? Did it matter that Ohio State was playing in the Rose Bowl? Does the Fiesta Bowl matter? Does any of that matter? Because if I'm going to be completely honest with you, do you think that matters?
I think it does.
Okay. Because I'm going to be completely honest with you. If let's say Ohio State wins, I'm probably not going to remember that we beat Texas. Well, I'll remember that we beat Texas. Yeah. Okay. I would remember that just because I love Ohio State.
Beating Oregon in the Rose Bowl.
In the Rose Bowl. I will remember that. But the casual fan isn't going to remember that. They're not going to remember that Ohio State rolled over Oregon in the Rose Bowl, or that. And the only reason I'm going to remember the Cotton Bowl is because I was sour grapes because it was like a home game for Texas. I was mad because it was in Texas. That's the only reason I'm going to remember that. So, I don't know what the first round, the second round, I don't know what other teams played in because, I think it just matters that it was the football playoffs.
Unfortunately, this year with Notre Dame and Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, it's going to get remembered for worse things, which is very unfortunate, but to say the least. But no, I think to your point, Heather, I think if you're talking a casual fan, I think you might be onto something there. But if you're talking like people like us and like people who've been following college football for a long time, I still think there's something there. I still think there's that whole thing like, wow, we beat the Big Ten, beat the old, even though it's not the Pac-12 anymore.
Well, but it is the Pac-12 in a sense, like it still is, because it's still hard to separate that.
And to in the Rose Bowl, that tradition, the history of the Rose Bowl, for Ohio State to get that win and potentially take them to a national,
right. It does feel good
on Monday. So I think those still kind of matter. But again, it's a fair question because I think some would probably say, it's college football playoff now.
Right.
But from a traditional standpoint, from us who've been following college football,
us older.
Yeah.
Our generation
still
remembers the BCS.
I think it still does. I still think it does. Now, it'd be a fair question to ask here in 10 years.
Well, right, because we still do remember the BCS era when it was the New Year's Six games, and they maybe they didn't matter obviously as much as the national title game, but they still really mattered.
Yep.
So one last question before we segue into the preview of Notre Dame and Ohio State, and I don't think I'm putting you on the spot because I think I did send this draft to you, but what rule would you change in college football for next year? If you could choose one rule that you would change, what would that be?
You sent me multiple ones here. So
I did send you multiple ones. They were just some examples. So you didn't have to choose from any of those. I know what I would choose while you're thinking of it.
Yeah, I'll let you go first. I want to pull up your little.
Yeah. So what I would change is, and Ethan, if you're still watching, you're going to agree with me on this one. I would change the pass interference rule. That rule absolutely drives me bonkers. It feels like the defenders are getting rewarded for interfering because, you're going to throw a deep ball and you're going to throw a 20, 30-yard pass and you're going to interfere and you're only going to get a 15-yard penalty for it. It should be a spot foul. It should be a spot foul. I'm going to say it again. It should be a spot foul. It drives me crazy because why wouldn't you interfere? Why wouldn't you? You have Jeremiah Smith, who's deep. Why wouldn't you have hands all over him? Because they also don't have illegal contact in college football. So be all over him, take your 15 yards and reset and try to stop him again. That rule drives me crazy. So
that's valid. I mean, I don't disagree with you, but just for the sake of your list, I'll pick something different just so we can differ on something. The down by contact. I hate that. I hate it when a receiver gets open, extends, makes this great catch, and he's down, and there's not a DB around.
Like for 10 yards, he could get
back up and
advance in the end zone.
It's because he put his butt in the line. Like what? You're gonna
right.
I don't like that one either. But your point's valid because you're right. I mean, a defender will just. And I've kind of always thought in my head in the past, especially the past few years, I'm like, what could be done? Because I'm trying to also keep in mind these are 18-year-old kids out there playing, and they just left high school.
Well,
go from a high school to an NFL type rule. That's a big jump, but it's like but also it makes sense because to your point, the defense can go, oh, we'll just keep pushing the guy. You would think if that became a bigger issue, there might be an unsportsmanlike there if they did that. But then I guess that's will get complicated.
It does. But then how often do the refs miss the interference calls anyway? So why wouldn't you get There's no illegal contact, and then they miss interference calls, and then they call BS calls all the time anyway. Like that wasn't interference. So there's just no continuity with that rule. It's like the targeting. There's just no continuity with the targeting rule.
Yeah, and the other one too, Heather's in the first half of the Penn State Notre Dame game. Penn State was able to create a nice mismatch. I think it might have been a linebacker on one of their guys, and he was just like trying to catch up to him, right? And puts his hands up like this to try to block his view. Doesn't touch him. Ball's underthrown, and receiver goes back, and they call pass interference.
Yep, flag's thrown.
Like it's underthrown by like 10 yards. Like,
right. Where's the uncatchable? Like,
uncatchable.
Just because it was underthrown doesn't mean it's they only call the uncatchables if they're overthrown. Like, no,
right.
if it's 20 yards underthrown, he can't go back and get it. Yeah.
So I think both of those, honestly. I mean, there's probably a few more we could nitpick too, but I mean, yours is solid. But yeah, the one just being down by contact. By contact of what? The ground?
Contact of what? The ground, the 20 yards. It's like when Will Howard was running and he tripped over the 20-yard line. The 20-yard line tackled him.
That's silly to me, but
yeah. So, okay. So we can go ahead and I mean, there's not much for us to say about this game. It's going to be really exciting, I think, for both programs. There's a rich history between both of these programs, and it's a recent rich history. Yeah. If you had better technique, Ethan said, if you had better technique, you might avoid some of those pass interference calls on the underthrows. I mean, I agree. I do agree that I'm not sure what they're teaching them, but story for another show. That's something I'm working on. I want to get someone on here that's defensive minded that can, talk about how they coach.
Right. I mean, he's definitely not wrong in that sense. But my argument in this case was, especially if you get a mismatch and your linebacker's trying to recover and go, oh crap.
Well, yeah.
And then he catches up, and this is just trying to do this just to try to obstruct.
Well, I agree. I completely agree. In that it was good technique. In that scenario, it was
a different story. Yeah, that's another discussion, no doubt.
It is. We'll do it. We'll do a show on that. Ethan and Mike, we'll have you. We can all wax philosophical on the defensive techniques. So Notre Dame, Ohio State. I mean, pretty exciting. I think that it's clear to me, and I think that there are a lot of people who are going to disagree, but I think it's clear to me that the two best teams are in the final. And I am not upset with how this has shaped out. I think that it played out exactly the way it was supposed to play out. And I think you have two of the best defenses. You have two of the best coaches. You have the best looking coach, Marcus Freeman. I almost bought a shirt that said best looking coach but whatever. I'm a Marcus Freeman fan. I don't want to admit it, but he played for Ohio State. He played from 2004 to 2008. He was a linebacker. He was a decent linebacker. He was a pretty good linebacker. He's an even better coach. And you have Ryan Day, who's knocked on the door so many times, and finally somebody answered that door, and then he's been invited to the party. So what are these two first-time coaches in these big games? What are they going to do? What's their game plan going to be? So, Mike, give me your breakdown, your thoughts. What do you think we're going to see?
I don't, they're going to make it about those two coaches, obviously.
The Just for Men spokesman.
I would say that, or like Pennzoil.
No, rosacea.
But honestly, when it comes down to X's and O's, I'm seeing what Jim Knowles is doing for Ohio State, and I'm seeing what Al Golden's doing for Notre Dame.
Yep, that's where it's going to matter.
That's where I'm seeing it, because I do think Notre Dame's going to do something similar to what Texas did. You kind of have to.
Well,
there's no way in a million years, in my eyes, you let Smith beat you.
Well, right, and Texas did the triangle with him. They had three on him, and
put pressure on the other receivers, and you make Will Howard make the throws. If Smith gets open, my hunch, maybe we'll find out Monday, is it someone a DB slipped, missed something like that, something kind of wild. I don't anticipate. I mean, I'm guessing he'll have a few catches short.
Well, he's going to get more than 5 yards.
Yeah, I do believe that. So I'm really looking to see what kind of schemes that Golden's putting out for Notre Dame, just to kind of try to keep that high-powered offense in check. Obviously, from a Ohio State perspective, you got three running backs basically, and one of them can throw on occasion.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, and the deal is, Leonard can't turn the ball over. That's, to me, is where that's going to come down to. He cannot. He turn it over twice against Penn State. Not going to be able to do that. He's got to get going with his legs. He's a from a quarterback perspective. Howard's a better passer type of guy, but Leonard is so good with his legs, and he can usually, and he's been doing it. I mean, he got Green Tree on that touchdown pass where caught Penn State sleeping, and we've seen, unfortunately for y'all, we've seen some games where your corners have been burnt and just kind of caught looking dumb. So we'll see if that can happen. But I'm still looking at the defenses on both sides and really what kind of schematics that those two come up with. I think those might be the two best coaches outside of Freeman.
Right. I completely agree. I completely agree with you. And I did credit you on the other two podcasts that I did this week with was it Price that he leads the nation in yards after contact. So that's a problem. That's a problem for Ohio State because
that's a regular season stat. Just disclosure for anybody who's listening. That stat did not include the postseason, but still.
Does it need to though? I mean, that's a hell of a stat, man.
No, it doesn't. And they've got a great two-headed. So I mean, if I was breaking it down like this, if you're looking at advantage quarterback, I think advantage Ohio State, but not by as much as people would think. Running back, I'd say advantage Notre Dame, even though your running backs are solid.
They are solid.
I'm just kind of splitting hairs here a bit.
Yeah.
I think secondary, probably advantage.
As much as I love Ohio State, advantage Notre Dame.
But
the front seven, our linebackers, advantage Ohio State.
Yeah. So we'll see how Notre Dame's O-line can hold them, if they can hold them.
Well,
I think they will. Knowles will put some schemes in. They'll get some pressure back there. No doubt about it. But, Texas probably did just short of enough needed. Minus mistakes, but still.
Right. Texas did expose Ohio State a little bit, so I do think that Notre Dame is going to have a bit of a better game plan than they would have, against a Tennessee or an Oregon game film. I think Ohio State has to get separation. I think if we can establish that passing game early, then I think that if Ohio State gets up by 10 or more, I think it's game over because 10 doesn't seem like a lot, but I think that Ohio State will they'll keep going. If they can get up by 10, it means they're doing something right. They're going to stick with that. And I just don't think that Notre Dame is going to have enough offensive power to come back from double-digit deficit. So, and I know that 10 doesn't seem like a lot.
I would up the number a little bit. I would probably say 17. 17? Because Notre Dame is good enough on special teams and the defense to flip it.
Right.
We've seen that in the playoffs already.
Yeah.
So that's why I'd probably say, if it comes out like you all did against Tennessee, like 21-0 out of the gate, boom, call it. It's over.
It's game over. I don't think it will, though. I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a little bit of a lower scoring game. I still think that it's going to be in the. I do think that Ohio State can get up maybe into the very high 20s or 30. I'm calling it 31-17. I think it's going to be 31-17.
I heard a stat today, and you might be able to verify or not necessarily verify, but it sounds like it makes sense here. But because obviously they played last year.
Boy, that game was ugly.
Yeah, and Ohio State returned. So was it 13? I think is what I read today, or read and heard today from starters.
From last year. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of guys came back because they lost to Michigan, and then they didn't. How'd that work out for them?
Notre Dame returned 6, and 4 of them are out.
Yeah, that does. Does that concern you? Some of the injuries that.
Look. You know me. I've talked enough. I'm a next man up type of guy. They lost their tackle. Guess what? The guy who started the season, the tackle, he'll be back for the game. So. That is not going to really worry me too much. If they get beat there, they're probably going to get beat there anyway. To be fair, there's obviously they lost 3 defensive studs, and they've not had them all year. And the freshmen corners have stepped up, have played very well.
Yes, they have.
Now, this is going to be the best receiving core they've seen all year.
Yes.
So they've got one heck of a challenge on their hands, no doubt about it. Which is again, I fall back to the golden scheme and see what he comes up with to try to keep the receivers in check.
And I think that's like I said, my key to the game is going to be if Ohio State receivers can get separation and establish that, because Ohio State is not a dominate the line of scrimmage kind of team. They are a cook your DBs kind of team, and then it opens up that running game.
Yep.
because that that run by Trey, close the second half or close the first half against
That's
Texas.
my word.
No one had that on their bingo card. I promise you that.
Yeah.
We were all like, we're just, every Ohio State fan is just like, oh my God, we just let Texas score and we're not doing anything offensively. And now we're going to pitch it to Travion and he's going to get stuffed for 2 yards. And all of a sudden, I'm like, there's a hole. I'm like, there's a hole. And you could just see him like parting the sea. And that was a beautiful thing. That was a beautiful thing. Quinshawn had a really good game that game too.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your score prediction? What do you think? I don't love making the score predictions because I'm usually so wrong. So I'm going to make you comfortable and do it.
I do it for fun. It's just because it's fun.
I know I'm so bad at it.
Well, I'm not great at it either. I mean, I feel like in times I can make a play call or a couple play calls through the game and say, hey, here's what I think's going to happen. It will lead to this and this or something like that. But since I'm an Indiana guy, and we have to have a little disagreement. And I've been pretty nice to you tonight. I haven't really razzed you.
No, you've been very nice to me. I appreciate that.
So here's what I'm gonna have my little razz moment with your audience.
Do it. Do it. I can take it. I'll give it back.
Be that funny. Be the corny villain. I'm gonna go because it'll be very, very close. I'm gonna go 27-24.
You're gonna call it Notre Dame, you jerk.
I'm gonna call it Notre Dame. You know I got to as an Indiana guy. You know I have to do this. How do we get there? Riley Leonard's going to make this crazy dumb play, right? It's going to be that dog in him because he's going to have his stats are probably going to look like crap. All right, that's been the case. So he's going to make this crazy play, and he's going to see Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry JTT come at him, and he's going to somehow evade it and make this crazy pass. Well, no, and make this crazy pass to Green Tree, and it's going to be a walk-off field goal.
Guys, bookmark this so that we can all point out what a doofus he is when he's wrong, okay?
I told you I had a razz. I had to have a little fun.
Well, how are you going to put some respect on JTT? Learn how to say it, JTT Tuimoloau, because you're going to be saying that on Sundays. And Jack Sawyer.
I know I am. I just said Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry. I was just going with
I cannot wait until we hoist up the trophy.
Very well, man.
I was on the show last night. Herb and Raj, they were so gracious to point out that Jim Knowles, the only reason that Jim Knowles is coaching is so it doesn't disappoint me, and that I have a spot ready when we win the trophy. It's coming home with me, so everyone knows it's for me, and you can just shut it.
Okay, I'm not sure why we had to get so violent, but all right. I was just trying to have a little fun with y'all, man. Man, y'all getting mad.
Oh, stop it. Don't be a jerk.
I see these TikToks and videos out there. Big mad. Fans are getting all big mad.
Santa Claus isn't real.
Yeah.
You heard it here.
I did see a meme today, and I meant to send it over, and I didn't. It was like, who do you got? The whole U.S. map, right? Who do you got? And has, like, of course, Indiana's green, and then Ohio State's obviously with the Buckeye, and it leaned a little bit into Michigan with Notre Dame, and then had the rest of the U.S. going, just let the meteor hit us now.
No, I think, I can see that. Listen,
I mean, these teams are polarizing. Let's be honest, both of them are polarizing.
Right, and we're both insufferable. We're both insufferable. Probably Ohio State more than Notre Dame, but we are insufferable right now. We're relishing with this.
Well, I think now I would probably agree with that, just because I think Marcus Freeman's actually made Notre Dame a little bit more likable than they used to be. Just a little bit.
Well, I would agree. With that because I like Notre Dame a little bit more than I used to because of Freeman. And I hated, Brian Kelly was just, we wanted to punch him in his stupid.
Oh, yeah. We still do.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, you guys heard it here. We're wrapping up the hour, so we won't keep you much longer. Thank you for everybody who joined us. We appreciate it. Thank you for all of you who commented. I want to give Mike the floor again. And if you are joining us late and you didn't catch us at the beginning of the hour, I want to just reiterate that you guys need to follow him. Please follow him on his personal, on his podcast networks. What they're doing over there is just really good stuff, you guys. So please check it out. Mike, tell us a little bit about your projects.
So, yep, you can follow me there at the Chill Mike and at IndySports_IESR on the old X platform. I'll be going live Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. My show again is Indy Sports Nation, but we will be having some Ohio chat this week because, as I mentioned earlier, we've got the Irish Buckeyes game on Monday, but Pacers and Cavs played 2 games this week, so we'll have quite a bit of Ohio chat going on this week as well. So hopefully you can all tune in live or watch the replay.
Yes, please do. Please do. You won't regret it, I promise. So I will close out with just a reminder. You can follow me on X, Twitter at Love Buckeyes. If you're not, do so at your own risk because I post a lot. And you can check us out on YouTube at Bougie Sports. You can check us out on bougiesports.net, where you can see all of the awesome things that we have going on. You can see everybody that is a part of our network. And again, subscribe to YouTube at Bougie Sports. So thank you guys so much for joining us. I appreciate it. And go Bucks.
Go Irish.
Go Bucks.
Irish.
You had to get it in the – no, go Bucks. I think we're still live. I got to end the stream.